I just finished up a call with Eric, a new audio friend of mine, and he was asking me about how to progress in his corporate audio career. He's done a few shows there, has really come to enjoy it, but it's a new field and is wanting to know how he can level up and what he can be aware of. As it's with any arena within live audio, whether that's broadcast or touring or festivals or corporate, there's some inside baseball specific ways of doing things and things you need to be aware of. So today, my hope is that if I were going to replay this conversation I just had with Eric, give you a little bit more tactical rundown of here's 25 tips to help you on your next show as an A1, and that is specifically mixing front of house and often the stream feed at the same time for corporate audio gig. There's also an A2. I could do another video on that as well, but today specifically A1. If you don't have an A2, you're likely doing both. So I wanted to give you 25 tips in rapid fire fashion so you could be prepared for your next audio gig, because this is the end of the year. When I'm filming this in December, I'm looking back on things, and you might be doing the same, and you may be asking, what type of gigs do I want to get next year? And if you might want to diversify your audio portfolio a little bit, I would definitely look into getting more corporate audio gigs. There's room here. We need more talent, so definitely check it out. All right, let's jump right into these in rapid fire fashion. Number one, be ready to record and process voiceovers. So oftentimes there are walk-ons or announcements for talent that's come to the stage. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Smith to the stage, and then a song plays. Oftentimes they don't have these pre-recorded, or maybe the guest list changes or the presenter list changes, and they need to have you record them. So by default, that's you at front of house. So be ready to do that at your desk, or carry a little portable interface with you so you can run off to some quiet room somewhere in the hotel you're at and record it. And also right here, I think it's worth it to have at least RX elements from iZotope. So this helps you get rid of clipping, any voice noise in the background, and it's on sale right now for super cheap. So I would pick that up and be able to do some forensic cleanup on the processing right there. Number two is learn QLab. So QLab is a software by Figure 53. Actually, I'm going to go to this file right here. All my audio outputs are broken right now, but it actually plays the audio files. So for video files, you have a video playback software. This one's specifically for audio. QLab can do video, but this is the audio section. And I have all of these different audio assets in here. And then I can have an intro, so say someone's name, and then I have their walk-on tune. It can have the second cue wait until that one's done and play it. It's very flexible. It's the industry standard, and it's worth learning. You can just get the audio license for it. You don't have to pay for the whole package. An alternative that's more affordable is called Farrago, but it's not as flexible. I used that for a long time. So anyway, and that also means you should have a bucket of royalty-free audio clips. So on my hard drive on resources, I have an audio playback folder with a bunch of different types of folders. So I even have a VOGs that are recorded, like, hey, we're silence your cell phones, they're coming out in 10 minutes. I have awards music, I have electric and instrumental music, all this sorts of stuff that I can have as a bucket, which leads to number three. Get a Spotify account, because you are the DJ. Unless the DJ shows up to your gig, but you still often have to DJ. A playlist that I like to use is now, that's what I call a Safe Pop corporate playlist by this guy, Shiel De Vries. I guess that's how you say his name. It's 570 songs, 34 hours long, plenty of content, and it is no curse words, no super weird or suggestive content being talked about, just good. Anyone can listen to this type of music. And it's just great to put on. It has a corporate walk-in. There's some other curated playlists that I have for specific moments within corporate shows, but if you just need one to have downloaded on your machine, get that there. Another reason why you're going to need a Spotify account is oftentimes they'll say like, hey, we want to really have this song for their walk-on, and it's not the one we gave you. You need to be able to dig into your account, pull something up, scrub to the chorus of the song, hit play, and away you go. Next up is number 4, you need to learn the Yamaha series DES. So that's going to be the CL, QL, DM, and Ravage series DES. So you're probably going to see the CL and QL the most in these mid-level shows. But right now I have the DM7 editor, which is the newest Yamaha console. And this is kind of similar to what I might do for a corporate setup in a very compact fashion. I just got 4 lavaliers. I have a stereo tunes or walking music, a royalty-free music stream, playback left and right for videos, and then NAP mics or the room mics all right here. So get familiar with Yamaha's way of doing things. To note, you have an on button instead of a mute. Their patching system's a little bit different. They have native Dante built into them. So if Yamaha is not something you've been used to, definitely get a hold of that. The most often used other console besides the Yamaha I have seen in corporate world is a good old Behringer X32 or M32, and sometimes Allen and Heath stuff. But by and large, Yamaha is really going to hold on the corporate market unless you're getting to the serious upper tier stuff, where you might see a Digico every now and then. Number 5 is to get Dante certified. If you're unfamiliar with Dante, it is an audio over IP transport system. It's not technically a protocol, but kind of like a protocol. But it's a way audio is shuffled around over a network, and these are all free. So you can get level 1, level 2, or level 3. I would get at least level 1, if not level 2. So it tells you what's in each one. You also learn a lot about networking and its fundamentals as a whole. It's really well done. They just updated it, I think, in 2021, maybe a little bit more recent than that. But I've taken them. They're great, really well done. And it's the backbone of most corporate shows. It's native to Yamaha. The Shure ULXD and Axient Wireless all use Dante to transport their audio. There's Dante Virtual Sound Card. Anyway, dive into it. You're going to run into it on a corporate gig. It's really helpful to know. Number 6 is leverage your auto mixer, and that is the Dugan here. This is the specific Dugan auto mixer, but what it does is you can patch channels into it. So I got my 4 lavs, and it'll weigh their inputs and use a process called gain sharing to say, hey, lav 1, the algorithm thinks it should be live right now, and it'll kind of duck, not really, but bring down the other 3 and give priority to that first lav, and then do the same if the presenter in lav 2 starts talking. You can have up to, looks like 64 inputs, or actually, yeah, 64 inputs here on this Dugan. You can divide it up into several auto mixers if you want. But all that being said, it's a lifesaver. It gives you more gain before feedback because you have less regen and room noise coming in. It just sounds cleaner since you don't have so many open microphones. So I definitely send every dialogue based microphone into your auto mixer. Will instantly clean things up. Very helpful for large panels, Q&A microphones, all of that. Number 7, you need to make the room and the stream sound great. This is becoming the norm now, is that just assume that there's going to be a remote audience of some sort, whether that's over Zoom or Microsoft Teams, whatever. But make sure you have the room dialed in and then a separate mix going to the stream. You need to figure out at what loudness, how to mix in some NAT or ambient or room microphones to make it feel like you're in the room. You probably need to have some offsets for how much the band is going to that, since it's going to feel loud in the room. You don't want to blow out the broadcast. I have a whole video on that. I'll have it at the link below to help manage mixing both. But it's definitely a mindset shift to have to worry about 2 places at once if you're only used to worrying about how the room sounds. Number 8, prepare for a lot of destinations. So your left-right mix or your main mix could be going to a simple left-right speaker on sticks, maybe in a breakout room. You could have some front fills, there's subwoofers, there's off fills, there's usually a lobby feed or overflow feed of some sort, which bleeds over to where your program might go, or your stream feed. This could go to a green room, an overflow room. There's multiple streams. Sometimes they want dry and wet program, which is dry program is your stream feed without your NAT microphones or room mics, and the wet program is with your room microphones. And then there's all what I call alt mixes. There could be mix minuses for maybe a two-way remote. So if someone's presenting over Zoom, they want to be able to hear what's happening in the room. So you're going to need to be able to send all the sources back to them, but not themselves. So that's the mix minus themselves. So definitely have those set up. There's also foldback, which are speakers set up in front of the stage for presenters to be able to hear video playback or even the Q&A microphones. So managing that destination. There are IFBs or interruptible foldbacks that are in news anchors' ears where they're able to hear the producer talking to them, but also get the program mix. Or a mix minus because they don't want to hear their own microphone. Sometimes you need to send a stem of all the dialogue just to the prompter operator. The prompter is scrolling the text that the presenters are reading from, almost like a script, and they only want to hear video rolls and the dialogue-based microphone. So sometimes you make a separate mix for them. And there's a lot more you can worry about, but just know you're getting a medium amount of sources. It's not a lot of variety. It's either a dialogue-based microphone or a playback source, but they're oftentimes going a lot of places, unless they add a band, which they probably are going to. Number 9, I want you to worry about intelligibility first and then naturalness second. Being able to understand what someone is saying quickly is really important. I know someone might accidentally on their blouse knock the lavalier off and it's hanging. Do whatever you can with EQ to get it to where you can actually understand them. If your A2 yourself cannot go fix it, then worry about making it sound natural later. Intelligibility is key. Number 10, beware of your footprint and mind the aesthetic. Corporate shows, they care about the way it looks a lot. You can oftentimes not be able to put your speakers in the most ideal position. There's sight lines to the screens. They just want things to look clean. So when you're running cables, positioning speakers, be mindful of that, make it as clean as possible. Number 11, make sure and communicate with your A2, especially if you're new to working with them, and how you want to talk about microphones. Some folks put numbers on them. So that's RF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you got 8, you could have 4 lavs, 4 handhelds. Make sure and communicate that. I would also ask that they double freak or have all, let's say you have 8 channels of wireless, but you have 8 body packs and 8 handhelds. Have both of them on the same frequency so you can flip them over, because you might need 6 lavs for a panel, then 2 handhelds for Q&A. Then the back half of the day, that might flip if they want to do a bunch of Q&A but only have 2 presenters or 1 presenter on 2 packs for a backup or something like that. So make sure you communicate with your A2 how you want to talk about them, calling them RF, calling them lav, calling them numbers, how many totals, do you call them Q&A? Just have a good conversation about that. Number 12, while we're on the topic of RF, make sure and create good gain structure with your RF audio signals. We can also talk about gain structure with the actual RF signal, but it is sure ULXD or Axient is the norm, at least this time of recording. The transmitter has gain within it, and that's the mic offset is another way to control that. So I usually set that at 0. And then you have on the actual unit RX gain. So you're able to have another gain stage there. And this controls the level being sent out, both the Dante outs and the analog outputs, because both ULXD and Axient have Dante outputs, a 4-channel card or block in there, and then also 4 analog outputs. But then there's also a separate mic out or line level switch on each of those outputs to attenuate or bring up to line level that output. So I personally like the signal not coming super screaming from the unit. So I run everything, mic offset at 0, my RX gain, I start at 0, and then I do line output. And then if it's still a little bit hot for what's coming out, I bring that down to mic, and I can always use the preamp at my desk if I'm coming in analog, or if it's over Dante, then I use the RX gain to bring it up. And the reason why I have it pretty conservative coming in is because someone might yell, and I want all of that headroom to be able to bring down level and not clip at the pack or clip at the input of the wireless unit. So I'm pretty conservative, then I'll bring it up. Number 13, have a wired backup microphone downstage center. Many corporate shows are very RF heavy, but if that goes down, you at least want someone to be able to pick up that microphone and go, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're having an issue. We'll get back to you. Or in my case, I've had it to where, a governor has been on stage and my RF went down. Thankfully, I had wired 58, threw it in his hand. He could keep going. We fixed the issue, flip back over to wireless. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want you to prepare for two-way remotes or Zoom calls, and this is a mix minus. So some tips here. When someone says, hey, we need a mix minus to go back to our Zoom presenter, you're going to send every source back to them for them to hear except themselves. So it's the mix minus themselves. What I also take out is the NAT or room mics, because if that presenter's talking over the speakers in the room and the NAT microphones are picking them up and they're going back to them, it feels like the mix minus isn't set up right because they would hear themselves. So I take out the room mics. Then I also make sure that Zoom input is feeding the Dugan or the auto mixer. So when that comes in, it's ducking the other open microphones. So then they're not hearing themselves come back and Zoom's not getting confused on who's talking. Number 15, prepare for audience Q&A. Oftentimes there'll be presenters on stage and then some straight stands out in the audience for folks to come up to. A microphone ran around by a stage manager or something, or sometimes your A2. So make sure and test the RF strength while you're walking out in the room to make sure that's good, and make sure you're able to get that fader to unity at a good level without it feeding back. You can't always control everyone's mic technique, but just be prepared for anything. You also want to make sure that Q&A microphone is in the full back or a small downstage wedge that's back of the presenter so they can hear their questions, and also make sure that it's post fader. If it's pre-fader, you have to worry about the mutes for the Q&A microphones. I just like if I bring that Q&A microphone up in the house, it also brings it up in the wedge and it goes to them. Number 16, make sure and duck your room mics or nats during video rolls, because if you have video playing, we don't want to hear the audience chatter because people usually try to talk or have side conversations during a video roll. We don't want that going to the stream or record feed. So I usually use a ducker on the channel and use a separate mix bus that's being fed by all my video playback inputs, and use that as the sidechain input on the ducker that can then pull your NAT microphones down. When the video fades out, you pull that fader, the signal is not ducking anymore, and your nats rise up. You usually have a pretty long release time so it feels natural, like a second and a half. But just play with that on a couple of transitions to get it dialed in. Number 17, make sure to do a clap sync for video world. So after you got everything dialed in, go up on stage, have the camera zoom in on your A2 with the microphone or you, put on a straight stand and clap into the microphone, and then they can look at the offset and the delay, because there's processing in your console, there's processing in the video switcher, and you will likely need to delay your audio to match video, because video is usually going to be slower. But you want to make sure your lip sync for the records and the stream is good. It's usually a frame or two at 60 frames per second, or I usually start between 75 and 100 milliseconds of delay. Usually gets to be close. Number 18, and this is keep up with the speed of the game. This is usually the hardest thing for folks to get used to. I had a buddy who was a lineman in high school. I think he was a left tackle. Then he went to college, and he said the biggest change was just the speed at which things happen. There's these hurry up offenses. Everything's just go, go, go. There's more complexity. And so when you're gearing up for a show, you're on comm. There's different departments talking to each other. There are folks out in the lobby saying, hey, we need more of this in the lobby. You're like, kill the music in the lobby. And this is also at the exact same time when they're asking you to fire a Voice of God announcement from front of house to welcome on your presenter. So there's usually a lot of moving parts all at key transitional moments. So being able to stay calm, stay clear, focus on what needs to happen first. Don't be afraid to ask for a minute if you need it, but be on the ball. And just know that it's going to feel fast for a while until you kind of get more used to things and comfortable. But people usually think of corporate, it's, oh yeah, it's just some dude talking on a podium, but there's often a lot more complexity on what's happening. You need to make sure you're ready for it. Number 19, have a talkback microphone at front of house, because spoiler alert, one of my ones later, tips later, is that there's probably going to be a band that shows up. Hey, hello. And that might happen, but also have it to be able to talk back to your remotes. Because if you're testing a Zoom feed, oftentimes they're connecting in the middle of the presentation right before you. So you can't put them in through the house and can't really test it, but you want to be able to talk to them. So I have a 58 or a wired 58 at front of house, and I have that routed to my mix minuses that feed those destinations. And that way I can be like, hey, I can PFL you here. I hear your audio coming in. Can you hear me? And I can talk to them through the actual signal chain that's getting to them, not just call them up on AirPods while I'm trying to mix. Number 20, see if you can PFL your lavalier microphones. If you catch a presenter talking backstage, you can PFL them and actually EQ them before they go on stage. Most often, I'm starting with this EQ on my lavs, a mid-range dip around 400 or 500, sometimes a little bit more, as much as 9 or 10 dB is a good starting point for the lavaliers that I use most often, then a high-pass filter at 125, 140 or so. But you can PFL them. For a bonus, you can route your Q-Bus output over Dante into your computer and use a metering plugin to look at what it's doing on the RTA, or of course, if your console has an RTA, you can do it here. Number 21, do a backup courtesy record on your USB stick at front of house. Oftentimes, Video World is responsible for recording. They're getting your audio feed and the video into one, but sometimes they fail. And maybe they just wanted to turn it into a podcast, and hey, you're the hero. You've got a backup record at front of house. All the Yamaha desks I talked about earlier have a USB card, and you go into the recorder and select your program or stream input and record there at front of house. It's also a good idea to make sure you save your console file to that same USB as well, and then back it up on Dropbox and then on Google Drive so you have it. Number 22, there's probably going to be a band added last minute. I know I mentioned this, but make sure and save some mix buses for them. It could be like a party band, maybe a string quartet, who knows? But music is usually more of like a transitional element or like a pregame thing, or hey, it's the party at the end of the presentation. So it's rarely like the main event, but it's part of it. You still need to do a good job. I would make sure and have their sends to the program stream much less than your dialogue to kind of offset the dynamic range change of the room versus the stream, usually at -10 versus my dialogue at Unity. Number 23, make sure and monitor your battery life and RF strength either on your console if you're able to mount that unit to your Yamaha desk and see it on the channel strip. If not, get out your Mac or PC and pull up Wireless Workbench from Shure if you're using Shure equipment, and you can monitor wireless there. This is really great if you don't have an A2 who's taking care of it, or just it's good if you have an A2, just have another eyeball on it just in case things are getting weird. Because I've been before, let's say I have 8 lavs, I'll just see lav 4, I'll see no meters coming from it at all, and they were mic'd up, and you're like, okay, where'd they go? I can look at the RF strength and be like, okay, I don't have it anymore. And they're like, oh, they went down the hallway to take a call. Of course, I'm not going to get any more. It's just more clues to kind of help figure out what's going on, especially when you're in the middle of a show. Number 24, home stretch here. Wear your comm, because folks are going to want to talk to you. I know it's not intuitive if you're used to just mixing without it on, but you're going to have something covering your ear. I know that's a problem if you're trying to hear things, but get used to it. So wear your comm and shut up. It's what I don't appreciate when comm gets really cluttered up when I'm trying to get my cues and then also try to listen and dial something in. So someone's just really chatty on comm. It's not good for anyone. So do a favor and do that yourself already. Be respectful of what's going on, and keep comm clear. Last one here, number 25, remind your A2 or yourself, if you're handling wireless, to charge your batteries at the end of the day. If you got a rental kit, sometimes they come with these rechargeable batteries. You put them in their slot, they're good to go for the next day. Sometimes you have alkaline that just ships and then you put in a new set. But you only make that mistake once, where you have a good rehearsal and you come in early the morning of to get ready and you realize you forgot to charge them and all your batteries are dead and you start in 30 minutes. And then you start have to pull out and do an emergency run to Walmart to go get new batteries, and it's not a lot of fun. So make sure and charge those. All right, that was a big list, lots of stuff. Hopefully this was helpful for you to get your feet wet in corporate audio. Again, what did I miss here? Let me know in the comments below what's been helpful for you in your journey as a corporate A1. My name is Michael Curtis. I love you helping get amazing sounding results on your shows. I'll catch you next time.